Let's draw a jungly jaguar, our letter J animal this week. You're going to need 3 items, a pencil, an eraser, and a black colored pencil if you have it. If not, use a black crayon or a black marker. These will be your outlining tools. You're also going to want to get something for coloring. I use colored pencils for my picture, so see what you have around the house for that. Go ahead and pause the video, look for those items. And that piece of paper can be just the paper that comes out of your printer, nothing fancy. Pause the video, meet me back here, and we'll begin. All right, are you ready? I'm ready. Let's start. We're going to take our paper and we're going to do it horizontal, which is long, this direction. We want to put it long because we've got a big, huge head to draw for our jaguars. Jaguars have large heads. I'll teach you about that in a minute. Now, I'll be using a marker. You're going to be using a pencil. I'll refer to this as a pencil, but you know it's not a pencil. It's a marker. That's what I'm using on my whiteboard. You're using a pencil. Make sure your eraser's near you, and let's begin. We're going to find the center of our paper like we always do. Make a dot in the middle. That helps us for our placement of our circle. The circle for the head is going to be wide. We can see by this picture he's got a pretty wide head. So I want to make a nice big fat circle right in the middle. I'm going to move my hand. I call this hovering. We talk about this each week. Hovering my hand around and then lay it down. Once I think my circle is big enough, don't worry about it being perfectly round. We can fix that later. I'm going to erase that dot. And now we're ready to do the placement of the ears. Now let's look at the ears on the jaguar. The jaguar's ears are far apart. He's got a broad head right here. Look at how wide that part is between his ears. So we want to make sure that we place his ears pretty far apart. Now for helping in placement, I draw a very light line right down the middle of my circle. Now don't worry about that line being perfectly straight. It doesn't matter, but make sure it's light. We're going to erase it later, but this is going to help us with our placement of everything today. So get that line right down the middle. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the first ear on one side. So if you look here on my picture, once I drew my circle, my ears may look a little different. One might be a little higher, one might be a lower. But as long as the placement is right, that's going to help you. You want to make sure that the placement is correct. So I'm going to go about 2 fingers out from my center line, and I'm going to make a little dot where I want to start my ear. I'm going to go about 2 fingers out from this side and make a little dot where I want to start my ear. And I'm going to make sure that that space is wide enough. It might need to be 3 fingers. You're going to have to decide how big that space is. So once you figure out your spacing here, it needs to be nice and wide. Then you're going to draw an upside down U. And when you make that U, you want it to be pretty wide at the bottom because the ear is nice and round. But it's not a perfect half circle. It's more like the shape of a U. Now once I've laid that shape down and my ears, I'm going to check my size, make sure they're about the same. Then I'm going to go right here to the bottom. And I'm going to go up from the bottom, and I'm going to go about 2 fingers up from the bottom and make a dot. And this is going to be the placement to start his mouth. So right here in that center line, I'm going to draw an upside down V. And then once I draw that upside down V, that's going to help me later to form the muzzle that's going to wrap around. Now I'm going to go right up from that upside down V, and I'm going to come a little bit farther up, and then I'm going to draw a wide V. This is going to be his nose. Once I have that wide V shape in there, I'm going to go across the top, and the top actually looks like the top of a heart. So I'm just going to round it around, dip it down in the middle, and around it on the other side. And then I'm going to place a little half circle on the side for his nostrils. Now, obviously, when I'm working on the whiteboard, it never looks as good as what you're doing with your pencil. Your pencil work is going to look so much nicer than my whiteboard work. But this is the best I can do right now. Now, the next thing is erase that center line. We don't need it right here in the nose. And then we're going to give his nose a little bit wider bridge. So I'm going to go right here on the side and make a little hook, and right here on this side and make a little hook. That's a little marking. It's right here on the edge of his nostrils. And then I'm going to draw a line that comes straight up on both sides. This is the bridge of his nose. Now from that bridge, that's where we'll form his eyes later. But right now we're going to work on his muzzle. So what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to draw a line that comes down and it loops around and it connects to that line here. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Down, loops around, and connects. Now you want to make sure that they're the same size and the same curve shape. So you want to make sure they're pretty even. Once you've done that, we're going to change his chin. Right now, he doesn't have the right chin. Matter of fact, he doesn't even have a chin. So what we're going to do is add a little extra curve right here in the middle. This part needs to be balanced on both sides. So make sure that when you do it, you don't make it too flat on one side and really skinny on the other. And once you have that, you're going to erase everything up in here. And he has like a little box underneath his face. But we're going to make it furry. Once we get to our black colored pencil, we'll fur it up. For right now, we're just kind of leaving it like this. Then we're going to round out his cheek a little bit more. So the difference between a jaguar and a cheetah and a leopard, I thought they were all probably the same kind of animal. I just knew they all had spots. I didn't really realize that there was a difference between them until I started doing some research. However, this is what I found out. A cheetah is the smallest of those three cats, and he has the smallest face. Next comes the leopard, and leopard's face would be kind of a medium circle. But the jaguar, he has the largest, broadest cheeks and face. So we want to make sure we're really giving him a nice, broad cheek that's big and wide and strong and powerful looking. So once you have drawn his cheeks down here and his chin and his muzzle, you're going to erase with your eraser all the lines you don't want to keep anymore. So go in and clean up all your lines. And then we're going to move up here to the middle of his nose. So right here, we don't need this middle line anymore. We're going to erase it. But right when you get up here to his forehead, you can erase it, but erase it a little lighter so that there's still a little bit of the line showing. We're going to use it a little bit later at the top of his head to help us do a few patterns of spots. All right, so now we're going to move on to fixing his eye. So his eye is going to start right where the bottom of his ear is, right here. It kind of lines up with the bottom of his ear. So if I just kind of do an imaginary line where the bottom of his ear is on both sides, that's going to help me with the placement of this curve for his eye. So you can see it's kind of lining up at the bottom of the ear. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now once I have that curve, I'm going to check my work, make sure they're about the same length. And then I'm going to flip the corner up just a tiny bit. Just a little, just kind of give it a little kick up. Inside that shape, this is where we're going to do his eyeball. So you're going to draw a half of a circle. The reason we're drawing a half of a circle and not a whole circle is part of his eye is underneath that curve shape. That is his eyelid. And so part of his eyeball is up underneath that eyelid. So we wouldn't see the whole circle. Now we're going to connect this corner to the corner of his eyeball right there. That's going to give him that little winged tip right there that we'll color in black. And then we're going to connect the inside. We're going to go up and then back down. And it's going to kind of make a little point on the end. So let me show you close up in my pencil drawing, that little corner of his eye. We're going to color that in black later. All right, let's get his pupil in there. Now, this is an interesting fact I learned about big cats. So when you're drawing his pupil, when you're drawing a house cat, you're going to draw an almond-shaped pupil, like a sliver. Like my cat Molly, when her eyes, especially when a sun is hitting her eyes, her pupil is like an almond shape, a slit shape. But big cats like pumas and cougars and jaguars and leopards, they have a rounded pupil. So I didn't know that. So go ahead and make a rounded pupil. Once you have that pupil rounded, we're not going to color the entire pupil in black. We're going to leave the top portion of it white. So it looks like there's a little light shining inside of his eye. So I'm just going to take my pencil very softly. We'll do it darker later with your black colored pencil. Add a little light. Okay, now we're going to go up and we're going to add a little extra line right here at the top. And then we're going to add his eyelid. So we want to darken this part with our pencil a little darker. We'll do it even more when we get to our black colored pencil, just to add a little, almost looks like he has makeup on, like a little eyeliner around his eye. But you want to make that a little bit darker black. You can see it's very developed. It's very dark. It's not light. Then we're going to add an eyelid. So I'm just going to add an extra line on both sides. And then right here, I'm just going to scribble a little pattern. And that's going to start some of the patterns that are going to happen up on his forehead. Now over here on his ear, we're going to go right here where the front of his face is, and we're going to add a little bit of hair right here. Just taking your pencil and kind of brushing it like this. So I'm going to make his top of his head a little higher. You might need to raise it up even more. So let me see. He has a nice space between his eyes and his forehead, so I might want to increase that just a little bit. I told you to leave that little dotted line. That's going to help us in a minute when we start to do our dots, but we have to make sure we get all of our marks in first. Now inside of his ear, I'm going to go to the center of his ear. I'm going to give him a little bit of fur that comes out to the tip of his ear. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then when we get ready to use our black colored pencil, we're going to do a lot of shading. That's going to really start to bring everything together. We're also going to use our black colored pencil for doing all of his markings, which makes him very unique compared to a cheetah or a leopard. I will explain those markings once we get there. Now we're going to draw his back. So if you look right here, there's his ear. His back is just going off the edge of the paper. And of all the wild cats, their tiger being the largest, lion being the second largest, the jaguar is the third largest of all of the big cats. So you want to make sure that you give him a really big, broad neck or shoulder. So right here underneath his cheek, you're just going to come down and bring the line, the other half of his neck down. You can add a little extra line right here, like it's his arm starting to move forward. And then right in this space, we're going to just give him an extra little line or two. And that is just his movement of his fur right here as he's turning his head. All right, so once we have that marking in, we're going to go right up here and we're going to give him his whisker spots. So right here, just going to draw a very light dotted line from the edge of the muzzle in toward his nose. Now I'm going to do about 3. It seems like there's about maybe 3 or 4 in the picture. If you do more than that, it's going to still be beautiful. Now that we're finished with all of this part, this was the main part of drawing of just the base of the cat. So if you're happy with your beautiful jaguar and you want to stop right now and you want to color your picture, you can. You could just use your colored pencils and make some polka dots now. But if you would like to do a little bit more detailed work, follow along with me because I have a lot more tricks to teach you. All right, so if you want to keep going, follow along with me. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to switch out our pencil now for our black colored pencil. So our black colored pencil is what we're going to be using for doing all of our outlining and our detail and the markings. So please put your pencil down and now trade out to your black colored pencil. And if you don't have a pencil, you can use black crayons for your outlining, or you could use a Sharpie marker. You're going to get the best results, I think, with a black colored pencil, though. All right, so the first thing you're going to do, you'll pause the video. You're going to go over all of your lines that you've just done in pencil. You're now going to do in black colored pencil. So every single one of these lines that you've drawn, you're going to go over now with your black colored pencil. Now, when you start to do that, when you're at an area that looks fuzzy, like this area here, you're going to want to take your pencil and make it fuzzy. So to make it fuzzy, all I do is I just kind of sketch my pencil like this, a little fuzzy mark. Just kind of scratch it. So pause the video, go over all of your lines, and then push play whenever you're done tracing up all of your lines. And then meet me back here. We're going to do a few more things. Okay, you're back. Thank you for taking that time to do that. That is one extra step, I know, to do outlining, but it really makes your work look a lot better. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little shading inside of his ear. Taking your black colored pencil, you're going to go in here and you're just going to scratch in a little shading on the ear. And I'm doing it right on the inside of the ear, right next to that tuft of fur that we drew earlier. Next, you're going to add a little bit of shading on the side of the ear. All right, now, I had told you earlier when we were doing the whiskers just to do some dot-to-dot lines. We're going to add those whiskers. I should have told you that. We're going to add whiskers at the end. I won't forget the whiskers, but we'll do it at the very end. So now, what makes a jaguar and not a leopard? I thought they were the same animal until I started doing research. I thought that leopard was just another name for a jaguar. I knew cheetahs and jaguars were different because cheetahs were skinnier and they ran fast. Plus, we learned about the cheetah when I was teaching you about the impala, the last lesson. But let me tell you, there are some facts that I didn't know about the jaguar versus the leopard. So this is a jaguar. Jaguars are broader, they're bigger, they're stronger. Jaguars live in Central and South America, whereas leopards live in Asia and Africa. The spots are actually different. So let me show you the spots on a jaguar. So all cheetahs and jaguars and leopards have these random patterns that look like this. These are called rosettes, and it's like you're forming two curves like this, but you're scribbling them. So this is what a cheetah has, this is what a leopard has, and this is what a jaguar has on their backs. The difference is that a cheetah has lots of them everywhere, and they're very small, and they're super compact and close together. A leopard has them, and they look like this, and they are a little bit smaller than a jaguar, but a jaguars are larger, and a jaguar has extra polka dot spots inside. So if you ever see the body of a big wildcat and you can't tell whether it is a jaguar or a leopard, look inside those patterns, and this pattern is called a rosette because it kind of resembles a rose when you look at it. Especially some of them, you can really tell that it looks like a flower, like a rose. So when you are looking at those animals, make sure that you're looking at the spots. So as you're making these spots, you're just going to be making kind of like a C and a backward C, and then make a few random dots inside. And then, of course, when you're doing them with your black colored pencil, you also want to do just some that are random. Because if you look right here, there's little ones, there's big ones. They don't all form the rosette pattern, and all the rosette patterns are usually on the backs of the animals, not necessarily on the face. They might have a few on their face, but most of them are concentrated around their back. So you're going to take a little bit of time now and start doing these all over the body. We're going to worry about the face ones in a minute. So just go ahead and quickly get in some of these patterns of rosettes. They don't all need to be rosettes. You're just scribbling with your black colored pencil. And yes, I know we haven't done any coloring yet. That will come after you do the detail work. So once you've done all your rosette patterns on the body, now it's time to start concentrating on the face. We're going to do a little shading on the face, and we're going to take our pencil first, and very softly with your black colored pencil, I just want you to brush a little bit of shading on the bridge of the nose. Now don't do it really heavy. We're just adding a little bit of shading there. We're also going to add a little bit of shading right across the bridge here, and very softly across the nose. Now you don't want to do this really heavy. We're just putting a light shading right here because it's a little darker there. All right, once you've done that, then we're going to put a little shading underneath his mouth right here. So just take your black colored pencil and brush it very softly. Don't make it really heavy. That's really important. Just very lightly put a little shading there. And then you're going to make his chin furry. So take your black colored pencil and give him a little fur on his chin. We don't want it to be a smooth line. We want him to be fuzzy there. He's got shorter hair around his jawline. Speaking of jaws, oh my goodness. Did you know a jaguar is so strong that his jaw can crush through a coconut? Easy peasy lemon squeeze, just crush right through. So his jaw is much stronger than any of the other wild cats. His bite is so powerful, which helps him when he is being attacked by this animal called an anaconda snake. They're found in the river, and a lot of times the anacondas will try to eat a jaguar. Isn't that crazy that a snake can actually eat a jaguar? So when he's fighting against the anaconda, he can use his powerful jaws to protect himself and fight back. All right, once we have done a little bit of fur around the body, we're going to start to add those patterns of spots on his face. So as you're doing these spots, you're just going to do these ones. You don't have to do rosette patterns. You're just going to scribble little spots. This is actually quite relaxing. And you want to make sure those spots are different size. Don't make them all exactly the same size. And then right here, before you get up to the eye, just try to not do any spots around his eyes. Just kind of save space. And then I'll show you a little trick once we get up to his eye. I'm doing them around his cheeks, skipping right by his eye. The reason I wanted you to wait until we got to his eye, I want you to notice he's got a patch of white fur around his eye. See that? So what I'm going to have you do is take your black colored pencil and very softly brush a little underline underneath his eye. Now I'm just kind of scratching it so it looks like fur. And this is going to remind you when we get to the coloring part, what part to leave white. He also has a little patch of white fur above his eye. So go ahead and add a little bit of scribbles above his eye. Next, once you've done that, you're going to take your black colored pencil, and I want you to give a little shading right around the top of his head, and then start patching those little rosettes all around his forehead. Now, I asked you to keep that little dotted line there because one of the tricks that you can do is use that dotted line as a marking tool to help you make your patterns symmetrical. On a lot of jaguars, their markings on their head are symmetrical. So if you want to use that as your little center line, and if you do a dot on this side, you can match it on the other side. You do a scribble on this side, you can match it on the other side. So you can use that little light extra dot just to kind of help, dotted line just to kind of help you with your markings. Now once you've done all of your patchwork and all of your lines in there, then we're going to go in and add a little bit of soft shading with our colored pencil right around the edge of the muzzle and right underneath his nose. Now when you're doing this, please do this very lightly. You're just going to put a little shading underneath his nose. Obviously, when I'm using a marker, it's not as pretty as when you're working. But when you're using your colored pencils, it's going to look a lot better. So this is the colored version. Here's the black and white version. See how that little extra shading adds a lot of depth. Next place I want you to shade with your pencil is in the eye. I want you to leave the very bottom of the eyeball light, but I want you to put a little shading around his pupil. And I want you to darken his pupil with a little bit heavier coat of black. Notice how I did some shading, a little extra inside of his ear with the black colored pencil. So you can add more there. A little shading on the side of the bridge of his nose. All right. Once your cat looks something like this is where you can go in and add your whiskers now. I've showed you how to do whiskers before, but just in case you've forgotten, when you're doing a whisker, you're going to take your pencil and you're going to flick it very quickly out, out, out. You don't want to do this slowly. You want to lay your pencil on that whisker line right here and flick them out, out, out. You don't want very many, just a few. They don't all have to be exactly the same length. And don't try to fix it if you messed one up. Just leave it. So once you have done that, then we're going to talk about your coloring. Because right now you have a beautiful black and white version. You could hang this up in your room and everybody would think it was so beautiful. It's wonderful. You did a gorgeous job. You could leave it just like this and it would be perfect. But if you would like to add some coloring, then you're going to use your colored pencils or your crayons or whatever tools you have laying around your house, and you're going to color them. So I used this image of the tiger that was colored, and I just copied it, just laid the picture next to me, or you could look on the computer. A lot of times I just picked one up off the computer, and I just scribbled. Now, all I used were my handy-dandy Crayola colored pencils, nothing fancy. I used orange and brown, a couple different shades of brown, whatever was in my box. I've used the same box of colored pencils for all these lessons. I didn't buy anything new. I'm stuck in my house. I'm just using what I've got. So I've got orange and tan and brown, and that's the colors I used all over his face. I just kind of blended those colors together. For his nose, I did a couple shades of pink. I think my box came with pink, and I think I used a little red on top of the pink. And that's what I used for his nose. For his eyes, aren't his eyes beautiful? I used yellow, and I used a tiny, tiny hint of green, because when I looked at that photo close up, it looked like there was a little bit of green in there. And then around the edge, I put a little bit of orange. But you can look at photos online and find the picture of the jaguar you want to copy, and you can use it. Did you know, this is kind of a cool fact, if you don't want to do your jaguar orange, there is a black jaguar. I know. You're thinking, no, there isn't, Mrs. Torres. That's called a black panther. Well, here's a cool fact. I did not know this. Did you know a black panther is not really a separate animal? A black panther is a type of jaguar or leopard, and it is called, let me make sure I'm saying this word right, melanistic. So it is there, when they're born, there might be one in the litter that is melanistic, and he'll be solid black. However, if you look close, it can happen in litters of jaguars and leopards. But if you look close, they do have spots. You just have to look close. They might look solid black, but if you look close, they actually are called a melanistic jaguar or a melanistic leopard. There's no such thing as a black panther. I didn't know that. That just blew my mind. So a black panther, so look it up. I know you're thinking, you don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Torres. Look it up. I thought that was a cool fact. So that was like the coolest thing that I learned about the beautiful jaguar. Another thing that I learned about the jaguar is that they can climb trees. That big, huge, brawny animal can climb trees. Didn't know that fact. And that is one of the ways that they catch their prey. They climb up into a tree, low branches. They're not really good climbers, but they climb up the tree to hang out on the branch, and then they jump on whatever it is they want to catch down below. They're really good swimmers. They can actually fight off and eat crocodiles or caiman. That's a type of crocodile. They eat those, and with their big, powerful jaws, they're able to fight those gigantic crocodiles. And let's see, what was another fact that I learned about the jaguar? Good swimmers. They live, listen to this. This is cool. They live in forests, rainforests, grasslands. They live in the woods, and they like to live near riverbeds because that's where they get their big source of food. So hope you liked learning about jaguars today. I liked teaching you about them. I learned so many neat facts. I loved drawing them. Pretty simple. We started out with a big circle. We made another circle here, two circles for the eyes, a couple little rainbow U's for the ears, and we ended up with a beautiful animal. I hope you're having fun. Hope you're subscribing. And tell a friend about my class if you're enjoying it. Give it a thumbs up, and I will see you for our next letter. Have a great day. Bye.